Well, good morning, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Richard?
I can't tell you actually how excited I am to talk to you today. I've actually really been looking forward to our conversation since you and I met, I guess, virtually a couple of weeks back, and we started to explore our shared heritage. We started to explore that we're both very involved in digital healthcare technology and digital health solutions. So I've really been looking forward to our chat this morning. So thank you.
No, thank you. And the feeling is very mutual. And I'm excited for the conversation and just excited to dive deep.
Great. So, folks, we are here with Elizabeth Tikoyan. She is the founder and the CEO of what I think is a pretty groundbreaking platform called Help. And we're going to get into a lot of that later. But Help is connecting patients with chronic and rare diseases to each other, right?
Mhm.
For peer support, it helps match them with relevant clinical trials. There's so much that you are attempting to do with Help. It's very impressive. Uh, I found you when you were most recently named to the very prestigious Chloe Capital 2025 New York Founder Fellowship cohort. So that's pretty exciting. Love to get into all of that with you. But I think we should set the stage, Elizabeth, a little bit. Can you please just tell us a little bit about you, your background, and kind of what maybe led you a little bit up to founding Help?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. And I think a lot of what has inspired my career and my calling is based on my personal experience.
Hmm.
When I was in high school, I was misdiagnosed for the entirety of my high school career.
Mm,
And when I was officially diagnosed with the condition, I was told that it was incurable, and
wow.
which is fine, right? But at the
Right.
time, I had severe paralysis. I couldn't walk. I couldn't
Mm,
talk.
mm,
I was told that there's no treatment options. And this was happening the same month that my friends were heading off to college.
sure.
Um, so it was really devastating getting that reality.
I
And
can't imagine.
so that really inspired, like when I got out of that predicament, I thought back to my experience and what was really missing in the market, both
Mm,
like when I was younger, getting diagnosed, not having answers, it's incurable. The medical world is at a limit to how they can
mm,
support me. So that really inspired me to create Help. And it started off as a college project. It When I was at uni, I created like a Tinder for patients, but it was not a dating app. It was strictly to match patients with the same health issues. Because I didn't know anyone my age and my in my same stage that had my condition. So I
sure.
wanted to do something where we can connect each other. And when we launched it, it was right before COVID. It was like January 2020.
Wow.
And then the next month, COVID hit. We grew astronomically. And then during that time, um, when the vaccine came out, a lot of patients were scared to take the vaccine. There's no clinical data
Right.
on the vaccine. And so we're like, you know what? We have a huge community of patients. They're really scared to take this vaccine. We can probably aggregate their experiences around the world. And so we
Mm,
did that. And we created a series that led to tens of thousands of patients across the world taking the vaccine. And we thought
wow.
like we should really change our platform from this matchmaking to
Hmm.
something bigger. We can
Hmm.
aggregate patient experiences. We can really help solve a lot of questions that patients have using community and just the collective knowledge around the world. And as we grew this network and this crowdsourcing tool, we then started getting approached by pharma companies that
Mm,
wanted to use our platform to match patients to trials. And so it was just this organic evolution.
mm.
We were listening to the market. I started this from my platform, from my own experience, and then um, I launched it, listened to the market, and evolved as there was a need in the market.
So many of the founders we talk to, Elizabeth, they get into this world of, in your case, healthcare technology or advocacy because of a very personal journey, right? And a very personal reason behind that. Clearly, that's the same with you. How are you doing today? How are things going in terms of your condition? Are you managing it well? Are you feeling well? Are you doing okay?
I have 100% recovery, which is
Wow.
I think people don't realize that I didn't know that was going to be my reality. I didn't
Sure.
think I was ever going to go back to school. I didn't think I would ever live a life like that. I didn't need medicine. and I'm living proof that there is cures, there is a reality after diagnosis. I think
Mm,
there's that fear of I'm diagnosed, my life is over. I don't know if I'm
hmm
ever gonna like go back to school, live a normal life, and I'm an example of that happening. And not only did I live in a normal life, I excelled in school. I started a business. I've like created like I've created like a social following of sorts, and I've done so much
mm.
traveling and just a lot of things that I never thought were going to be my lived reality. And so hopefully that inspires someone else who's just newly diagnosed thinking you can't do that. That
Mhm.
I thought that way too for the longest time.
Well, and thank goodness that happens to be the case, and I'm so excited and pleased to hear that you are living proof that that you can move on and live a full and exciting and beneficial life, right? You are really focusing on helping others and being as much benefit to others as you can. I talked for a second, Elizabeth, in our little intro about our shared Armenian heritage. Of course, yesterday was a really important day for Armenians, right? It was
Yeah.
our genocide Memorial Day. I know with our shared heritage, it also we share a very deep sense of community, of resilience as a people, of service. Can you talk a little bit about how your Armenian background has shaped your entrepreneurial journey, I guess, Elizabeth, and sort of your approach to entrepreneurship?
I love this question because a lot of my business sense and why I was passionate about business was really because of my heritage.
Hmm.
As Armenians, we had to move and start all over.
Hmm.
And for me, I saw how my parents, they had to, like my grandfather immigrated to this country,
Yep.
and my father had to work with his dad because he was the one that spoke English.
Sure.
So for me, I saw business in my own household. I saw how my parents, they had no choice but to be a part of our family business. And a lot of Armenians in our circles growing up, they had their own family businesses, and it was all and it was in this like blue collar type
Sure.
industries.
Right.
And and I saw how my parents, like, they grew something in locally that led to tons of people having jobs, and they're the reason why they had livelihoods. And just seeing, like, not only in my own family how business has like led to a livelihood in my parents' lives, but just this, like, even like my cousins that live overseas, like they lived in Syria and
Hmm.
a war broke out and they had to leave. And just seeing how the fact that they had this business experience and they had
Right.
the education, and when they went to a different region, they had the ability to start all over. And
Sure.
so it inspired me, like, people can take, and they can take your home, they can take your land, but they can't take your mind. They can't
Right.
take your experience. They can't take your skills. And that has always been something that I thought about when I was starting off in life. Like, I can, regardless of anything, I moved to any other region. Like, no one can take my parents' skill set. No one can take my parents' education. And no one can take that away from me. No one can take
Sure.
that away from you. And so just seeing the plight of my ancestors and then seeing that happen in real time with my own relatives, like in this day and age, with a cousin that's my exact age, she had
Hmm.
to move countries and she had to start all over. But because she had the education and the background and the skill set,
To
she
do it.
was equipped to do it in her new region.
I really appreciate what you just said to Elizabeth about how your family was creating livelihoods for other families. And I think sometimes that's often overlooked in an entrepreneurship journey because not only are you doing something for yourself and for your own sense of accomplishment, eventually, as you build a sustained business, you are then going to shoulder the responsibility of the livelihoods of the people that now work for you and are looking for you to continue to help them grow. So it's a tremendous amount of responsibility. So I don't think I say this enough to entrepreneurs, but I'm going to thank you for doing that and trying to build something that's not just for you and not just for patients, but also for all the people who will work for you and build their lives around your organization. So thanks for doing that, Elizabeth.
Of course.
You mentioned that you used the Tinder metaphor, which we all kind of laughed at a second ago. But I think it's important to my next question, which is, you mentioned that you started this at university, and you and I both know from our experience in healthcare that 18 to, I don't know, let's just say 30-year-old individuals, they're hard to engage, especially as it pertains to healthcare. You can engage them in other ways, but it's hard to engage them in healthcare. Let's talk a little bit about how HELP has been able to build trust with those younger patients in such a meaningful way, Elizabeth.
Amazing question. And it's honestly, if I didn't have the experience of being a patient, I
Mm,
would have never been able to have the ideas to be
yeah.
able to engage that patient community. So when I was sick, a lot of the resources out there were Facebook or Reddit forums, and they
Hmm.
skewed older. And when you would go to those platforms, it was very negative. And
Hmm.
if you engage with those platforms, you would never think that there's a way out. And
Right.
so I didn't think, based on hearing from my doctors and hearing from Facebook groups, that there was a way out.
Mm,
And so when I started my company, I thought, and given that like I am Middle Eastern, I am Armenian, it is very stigmatized to be
sure.
sick. And so I know like that was going against me. It was like the stigma. After I get diagnosed, not only was I going to go through all those treatments afterwards, that's a scarlet letter on me and for many
Hmm.
other people.
Hmm.
And so when I was thinking about how do we position ourselves, how do we engage this young audience, they hate the stigma just as much as I hate the stigma. So we had to figure out a way to make something that is so unsexy in society, something that is empowering and something that people aren't ashamed of. And so the way that we went about that was through messaging, through influencers, through the way that we talked about health. It wasn't the end all be all. It was
Hmm.
just the start. It's just your life is going to be a little different. And so, because we changed up the messaging, we are able to capture that audience that people have been having a difficult time to capture. Because young
Hmm.
people, they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, not just like an
Mm,
app, but they want to be a part of something that they feel proud of. And I wanted to make sure that when we branded our company and when we partnered with certain groups and certain influencers, they had that messaging. They didn't
mm,
have just a large following, but they had this message of empowerment across the board with everything that they did.
mm. And in terms of influencers, in terms of those that are kind of in the chronic disease community or in the rare disease community, was that sort of an immediate uptick and reaction from those influencers? Did it take a little while to kind of bring them over and get them on board to what you were doing?
We were so revolutionary with the way that we talked about illness
Hmm.
when we engage with other people that like, hey, we're starting a first of its kind movement. We're changing the stigma around life with a health issue.
Right,
We want you to be a part of this. People are excited about that because
mm,
no one's really done that before.
right,
And so for us, it was they hated, like, when you're newly diagnosed, there is a scarlet letter on you. There is
right,
this issue, like trying to live a normal life. You have people judging you. And so you feel very isolated. And so the
right.
fact that we're trying to change that through messaging, through community was something that people are really excited to be a part of.
That makes a lot of sense, Elizabeth. Thank you. I talk to some folks in the rare disease community, and they talk about their diagnostic odyssey and how long it takes potentially sometimes to get a diagnosis. I know this was a very similar path for you as well. You mentioned, I can't imagine how scary your world must have been at that time. And then we also know, Elizabeth, not only is there a long diagnostic odyssey sometimes, then there's the patient recruitment delays that go along to advancing medical research. You're trying to solve the challenges associated with patient recruitment delays. You're taking a very non-traditional approach to that. Can you talk about how help is focused on reducing those delays?
Yeah, so the one of the biggest issues is patients don't speak doctor. So a lot of the solutions out there are coming from the physician front, like physician referrals to clinical trials. And then we have patients going on clinicaltrials.gov. I would love everyone to just go on that site for 1 minute, look up just cancer, Lyme disease, diabetes. You'll see what I'm saying in a glimpse of a second. And that is a solution to patients right now that are bedbound, they are medicated. Even if you're educated, you don't really have a medical background. Most patients don't have a medical background. And
Right.
especially when you're younger, you don't really understand, like, that language you don't really understand.
Mhm.
And so all the solutions in the market right now are not geared, and or even I could tell not one patient was in the room when creating
Right.
those solutions.
Right.
And so we had to think back to when I was a patient, and I'm going even to the doctor's office getting lab results, and they're going through it with me. I don't understand what they're saying. I'm
Mm.
going back home and I'm talking to other patients, like, my doctor just said XYZ. What does this mean?
What does it
So
mean? Yeah.
we are all having to be translators to each other.
Mm.
So we're taking away the need for patients to be translators to each other. We're translating the medical
For
world
them.
to the patient. So they don't
Right. Right.
have to do the research. They don't
Right.
have to sit there for hours and really try to digest what they were just told. And
Mm.
so it's something we can do in today's day and age with the way we've like technology's involved. We can be middlemen between patients and the medical world. It's just no one's really done it properly.
It also seems like, in addition to helping with that medical translation, Elizabeth, more of that clinical need, there is a real emotional need that you are filling here. I have seen some influencers and others, be very vulnerable and talk very openly with a lot of transparency about IBS or mental health or, oh, I suffered from a stroke and this is my recovery. How do
Mhm.
you help kind of fill that emotional aspect for your I guess users of your community as well, or members? You call them members. I'm assuming members of your
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
Yeah.
Our members of our community. So the way that we approach this is when you're first diagnosed, the reality is you probably don't know anyone in your immediate circle that has that health issue. So you
Hmm.
do feel very isolated in that moment.
Mm.
So we try to approach that by you have this condition, or even if you're misdiagnosed, you know some of your symptoms.
Right.
And the way that we approach those individuals is we connect you to people that are in similar predicaments. You go to
Mm.
a profile, you fill out your profile with your details, with your symptoms, your condition, and then you will be able to connect with others just like you, or
Mm.
those in similar stages in life. Like, you're in college and you don't have a friend who's also newly diagnosed. You can now join a community where you can connect to people like that. So we try to really tackle it by connection, because there's
Mm.
that piece of isolation that, like, you might know a friend of a friend, and a lot of times people try to find those people in their circles when they're first diagnosed. And so we make it so that you will be connected to those people immediately, and then everything else comes after that. We
That's
do
great.
the crowdsourcing and the
Mm.
partnerships and matching to trials, like, after that piece.
That makes sense. I can really understand that journey and that workflow. So thank you for explaining that. Elizabeth, I do want to switch a little bit to other types of validation. So you seemingly have the patient and the community validation, which is so important, and I'm sure that's job one for you. But you and I both know a business is a business, and you need validation from the market. You need validation from, like we mentioned, Chloe Capital has invited you into one of their founder cohorts. You've had the support of organizations like Techstars, JP Morgan, BARDA. How has that journey been to getting validation for growth, for help on the business side?
So before even starting my business, I just thought, great idea, launch it, growth, and that's just the trajectory for a
Just
company.
gonna happen. Yeah.
It's so easy, right? And then it happened for a lot of my other friends who had other startups. But healthcare, I didn't realize how much red
Different animal.
tape.
Yeah.
It's a completely different animal. And I didn't realize how much, even if you had a brilliant idea that could solve every single problem in healthcare, you have to deal with executives. You have to have buy-in from those groups. And you might have a successful partnership with one group,
Mhm.
then you have to start all over with the other group. They don't have any relationship, or it's not the same sales cycle for those groups. So I didn't know that going into this. And so what we had to do was spend a while building those relationships. And
Mm.
while building those relationships, of course, like we're still building on our technology, building on our community. But once we had the buy-in from the first group, talking to the other groups was a lot easier because everyone, and for anyone that's wanting to start a healthcare company, your first goal is to get a pilot from your first partner, because everyone is going to ask you, have you
Right.
piloted? Do you have a case study?
Hmm.
And so my biggest recommendation for and people are probably like, why did you join so many programs and why did you
Right.
do so many fellowships? Healthcare is a different beast. I don't have a healthcare background. I was a patient, and for me to build those relationships, a lot of them came from um, those fellowships, and like even BARDA, it came through a accelerator program, and then
Mm.
being able to like connect with stakeholders through that system was important for us to get to the next step. And then just saying that like we're going to be supported by them was really helpful,
It's huge. Yeah.
to get to the next stage, because it was a huge stamp of approval, and again it unlocks every other door before
Mm.
scaling.
Mm. There's a lot of talk, Elizabeth, about patient-centered innovation. I talk a lot about it here in the School of Public Health where I am, and we know that Help is really trying to fit in to that picture of patient-centered innovation, and the future of clinical research. You're out trying to raise capital right now. I'm sure you've got some major milestones you're hoping to achieve. Can you talk a little bit about some of those milestones, and then certainly how you folks are just going to continue to make waves in this patient-centered innovation space?
Yeah, so our we have two goals. It's very simple.
Hmm.
We just want to be the biggest patient network in the world.
Good.
You're diagnosed with a health condition. Easy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You're diagnosed with a health condition, and we are the go-to platform for you. And then you'll join your community. You'll meet people who are just like you. And then second goal, simple. Again, go-to platform for a clinical trial looking for patients, and we'll match your trials to the right patients.
Mm.
Um, but we are raising capital to achieve those goals. And like we have been able to create a space that's never really been tapped into, which is young patients
Hmm.
and finding a space for them. And
Hmm.
so really trying to double down on that with our first capital raise will be used to continue growing that. But that is not our goal to stay there. Our goal is to be the go-to platform for every age bracket, every health condition.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense as you kind of evolve, but you've got this great beachhead or this great niche that you've focused on in that younger patient demographic. But now I know you're going to get to the next level of all ages, all demographics, right? And I think there's a really nice, simple elegance to how you stated your two goals. You know, be the biggest and also be the go-to as it pertains to clinical trials. So I think if you can stick to those two goals and stay grounded, I have no doubt that you'll get there. And I have very few founders who've come on this show and be able to so succinctly articulate their next milestone. So keep going on that for sure.
Definitely. It's easy.
It's easy, yeah, it's all
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you seem like a very grounded woman. Um, Starting a startup, no matter at what stage you are in your life, is a heavy lift. Um, it's hard. How do you stay grounded, Elizabeth? And how do you stay motivated with everything that's kind of coming at you at such a, I'm sure, feverish pace?
Yeah, I think the one piece that makes me so grounded is my faith. I
Mm.
have to say that is my North
Hmm.
Star in everything. A lot of what we do, like we're inventing something for the future, and
Right.
we're really trying to create a new category in life, and that given that I have no background in starting a company, like most people would think you're crazy to
Right.
do that and to believe you have the ability to do that. But my faith and my calling, just like knowing that that was something called onto me, is
Mm,
something that really pushes me to make this happen. And a lot of doors that opened to me, I have to say, I wasn't qualified for them, but I just knew I was there because it was meant for me.
sure.
And I think a lot of it comes down to like my faith that has led
Mm.
to that.
Led to you
But
too.
also, yeah, and the other part of it is just the I've been a patient for a
Mm,
long time, and I know the patient struggle, and I
sure.
know that no one's really solved it properly.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's I know I have what it takes to. I understand these patients. I understand how difficult their lives have been, and I don't think I. And for me, like every time when I was sick, like a lot of what inspired me was there's a silver lining here. There
Sure.
has to be a silver lining. And I promise, like, this again goes back to faith. Like, I promised God, I was like, if I get out of this, I will do something.
I will do something.
Please, like,
Yeah.
if I will do something. And I got out of it. And so now I have to do something. And so that's been
You have to
my,
keep that
and
promise.
it was I kind of wish I was a different promise, but here we are.
Here we are.
But, so I have to keep my promise to God. And but again, like I know even though it's been very difficult, I've had many ups and downs. I
Mm,
know that this was meant for me, and I just have to keep going, and every doors will open the more we evolve, and it has. And again, like every door that's open, like we have been able to prove ourselves. We've been able
hmm.
to get to the next stage of growth, even though people have doubted everything that I've been doing and doubted our capabilities to get to this new market and capture patients and so on. Even like it happens. Like if no
Right.
startup founder that's really made it like doesn't have a lot of opposition at the beginning. Like
Sure.
you're
Of
creating
course.
something that's never been done before. But your
Absolutely.
faith and something bigger than yourself is what really drove me to do it.
And you seem like a very convicted woman, and it sounds like there will be no question that you will keep that promise, like you said. Um, in terms of community, Elizabeth, it's hard, right? Because being a founder, being an entrepreneur, it's very isolating sometimes, right? There's a lot of things you've got to do on your own. There's a lot of decisions that you need to make on your own. Sometimes you need to move very quickly. Talk to me a little bit about the entrepreneurship community that you're a member of and where some of those resources are for you.
Yeah, so a lot of my community, my closest friends are founders or CEOs or
Mhm.
even business people that are started off as mentors, became really good friends. So just having them in my circles has really helped me. But
Nice.
in addition to that, I've been a part of a lot of accelerator programs that have
Mm,
uh, naturally like brought me amazing friends that have been inspiring to me because we have ups and downs. Like I could speak. I'm currently speaking to you about like our goals and what we're trying to do, and it seems inspiring. But behind the scenes, like people don't know, like the downs are really bad and the ups are really great. And other founders that I've had in my circle through like Chloe Capital, um, Techstars, and other programs, they've really helped me keep going. And
mm,
they help put into reality that like these downs are just temporary and
yeah,
you just it's a numbers game sometimes, it's just push a little harder sometimes, or it's a pivot moment sometimes.
right.
And founder friends help you realize like what that is for this stage.
It doesn't surprise me that your friends are also founders, your friends are also CEOs. It definitely connects a lot of the dots for me personally. I have tremendous respect for all founders, all entrepreneurs. Been there myself, but also, the work that, like I said, I know you have to do a lot of times in isolation, and because everyone is looking to you to make the big decisions, to come up with the big strategy, to come up with the big pivot moments, like you said. So I'm very happy to hear that you have a community that helps you to work through some of those things. So that's phenomenal. Um, Last question I have for you, Elizabeth, is kind of back to where we began with your journey. It's hard again to be a founder coming from an immigrant background or coming, from an underrepresented group. like yourself. Are there other founders that have inspired you, that you aspire to be like? What advice do you have for any underrepresented or immigrant woman who looks at you and says, "I want to do what Elizabeth is doing"?
Yeah, I think the one important piece of advice I have here is a lot of my inspiration were male founders and
Mhm,
CEOs, and I would always follow and emulate their stories. But
mhm.
the way that they did business, I couldn't do it the same way that they did to get to
Mm,
that success. So for me, I realized like a lot of those people, like even like as simple as like networking and certain times like you should be networking. It's like it's different. Like yeah, I like you as a female, like you're not really like going out with the bros or if they're all married. Like I'm not
yeah,
going to be in circles like that. And so
right.
you have to navigate the terrain a little bit differently. So
Sure.
with that, the people that have inspired me, one of the biggest inspirations for me was Sarah Blakely, like female founder. She paved a whole new way. She was in a very male dominated world, created
Yeah.
a product that like she had to explain to like a whole group of men the value of it, and it took like
Right.
an investor's wife to be the one to convince him like, yeah, this is a great idea. And so just like seeing that like everyone that has created something new, like they've had their fair share of difficulty and they've had their
Sure.
fair share of breaking in, and just like realize like they've done it, like you can do it too, you just have to do it very different. But I would recommend like anyone that's like looking for figures that have done it to look at the way that females have been able to navigate a world where there's tons of men, because it is difficult and you have
Sure.
to have a different way of selling to these groups. Maybe you need to convince their wives, or maybe you have to explain it in a way where they'll understand. But I I really believe like if like for those that like want to make it happen, like it will happen.
Sure.
And using examples of those like Sarah Blakely or other female founders, it can help you with your strategy too.
That's amazing. That's a great example, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. As you were talking about that and talking about women having to navigate male-dominated areas, I met a woman yesterday who became the very first ball girl for the Denver Nuggets,
Oh
the
wow.
NBA team. And the reason she became the first ball girl for the Denver Nuggets was she wrote them a letter every week. Why don't you have ball girls? Why do you only have ball boys? I can be on the sideline. I can, be a ball girl. Like, why? And she wrote a letter every week until they finally hired her as the
I
very
love
first
that.
ball girl, right? Isn't that an amazing story? And it actually then launched an entire career for her in professional sports, on the administrative side of professional sports. So, but just that notion of like, I'm not
Love it.
satisfied with the fact that you are saying, well, we only hire boys to be ball boys. I'm going to write a letter every week until you hire me, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's also the story of Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah,
She was not accepted to be a Shark Tank judge,
right,
and then she wrote a letter. I don't know exactly what she said, but like she did, like persistence pays off. Like no is
right.
not sometimes no. It's like you just maybe have to like convince them a different way or say something different. Or she, that's inspiring. For I think hopefully someone else hears what you just said and realizes like persistence and maybe explaining your position and why you should be there can one day open that door for you.
Absolutely. We have been speaking with Elizabeth Tikoyan, the founder and CEO of Help. Elizabeth, what's the easiest way for folks to find Help?
The easiest way is we're on Apple and Google Play stores. You can just download us. We're HEALP. And or if you want to follow our socials, we're at HEALP.co. And we'd love to like have you follow the journey, join, tell your friends if they have a health condition or they're misdiagnosed and they need community. We'd love to have them, and we'd love to have them join the movement.
That's wonderful. Elizabeth, your resilience, your sense of community and faith and service and our shared Armenian heritage has really made this a very special conversation for me. So, Anushek, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this. And please stay in touch with us, okay?
Thank you. The feeling is very mutual. Thank you for having me, and This was such a pleasure.